All right, and welcome. Here we go with exercise number 6. It is Labor Day, and taking a look on D2L at something else that is coming up here very soon. Midterm exams are due on September 13th. So, exercise 6 and its subsequent labs put us halfway through material for the course. So, if you have not as you finish up with this, my suggestion is that you get going on that midterm exam. That is a very hard due date on September the 13th, and that thing needs to be completed and done and turned in. That is our last assignment that's going to be due prior to the conclusion of the course on October 11th. So, just a note for you. All right, so exercise number 6. What's ahead of us is essentially this. We need to go ahead and create some two-dimensional drawings from a three-dimensional model. And for those of you that have come from other places, maybe have gone the two-dimensional route first and you've taken AutoCAD classes, what you're going to see here today is it's going to piss you off a little, just a little bit. Uh, yeah, if you spend a lot of time doing two-dimensional drawing, you're going to get a little frustrated by this. But the good thing is that if you did go that way, that doing 3D stuff becomes a lot easier when you have those solid two-dimensional sketching skills. All right, so we need to create this drawing or something close to this where we go through and practice a bunch of the tools available to us for creating two-dimensional drawings. And we know that we need two-dimensional drawings if we're going to actually produce a part, because if we send a 3D model down to a shop floor, they're going to go, "What the hell is this for? What are we going to do with this? Give us something we can use to create the thing." And some of the things that we've talked about and we've practiced with creation of models are going to come back to us, hopefully in a positive way, as we go through and do this. All right, so the first thing I need for you to do is to go ahead and grab it. If you don't have it yet, is to go to the assignment page for this exercise and exercise 6, and go ahead and click on exercise 6 part. We need to open that up. Click on that to download that file. And then inside of Creo, we're going to open up that 2D file that we downloaded, which is exercise 6 part. And there is the 3D model. Luckily, we don't have to create that with this one. That's not what we're here to practice. However, when you go and do lab 6, before you create the two-dimensional drawing for the thing you need to turn in, you will have to create that model first. All right, so we have our model. It is done. To get going with our drawing, we need to go ahead and start a new, and choose a drawing this time. And we're going to give it a name like L6, or actually E6, or exercise 6. Call this exercise 6 video. Hit OK. And do an empty with format when we choose this up. It's going to give us an exercise 6 part. We're going to pick an A format, so we're 8.5 by 11. And then when we open things up, we should get our template file, a basic template file, basically a basic layout for a type block where we would put all that important information, as you see in the example, which is on page 70 of your manual. And again, that manual you can go ahead and grab if you don't have it handy, as you can find many other things like the part file for this one at Vertania1.com. It's under instructional manuals for Creo parametric basics. You will go ahead and get this manual if you don't have that yet. We'll navigate to page 70. And there we go. That's what we are working with. I need to work on. So we're going to go a little bit farther than is in the example here to practice a couple of other things. So we'll highlight and knock out most of these things, but we're going to add a little bit more to it just for a little additional practice. All right, so if we got the manual, you've got it there. We are good to go. Let's get back into this drawing file. All right, so the first thing we need to do is go ahead and we need to place a view on here. Creo is going to help us scale things appropriately given the models that we go ahead and pick. Okay. So if I choose those options there and I click, it's going to ask me to pick a center point for that view. So when I left click to place that, I'm going to see a view of that model. I really don't want to see that particular view, that standard view, that isometric. I want to see that front view, that most descriptive view, because that's what I'm going to always place in that lower left-hand corner of my multi-view drawing. So as I come up here, I'm going to choose a couple of different other options. Okay, the scale one we'll look at, and Creo does a very good job of going ahead and picking a scale that makes sense for a sheet size. So an A size, 8.5 by 11, it's looking and having us choose a scale of 0.167. All right, kind of an odd number, but we'll work with that and see how things look as we go. Some other things that we need to do is we need to go ahead and change how this thing looks. So we're going to click on, let's do this first. We'll hit OK first. So it gets us to that front side view. And we'll double left click. We'll get back into here and we'll go to view states and view display. And we're going to choose a display style. So we don't want to have any hidden lines showing in here. Okay, and then for tangent edges display style, this phantom option shows up pretty nice as we are creating 2D drawings here. So what we end up with is a pretty clean view where we don't see those hidden lines on the inside. We see our object lines. We see where some of our curvature, some of our arcs begin. We see those along here as well too. So as far as a view goes, that's going to be pretty good for what we want to do. All right, so we have a single view. We need to add some other ones on there, and we're going to add some other ones by using projection. So the idea of creating multi-view drawings, for those of you that are new to this, we want to show several different views, beginning with the most descriptive view, which in this case is the front view. And then we're going to project some views here alongside. We're going to project from here over to here to create a right side view, which is going to show us the front of this flange. And then we're going to go ahead and project a top view of this thing so that we can see that. All right, we're going to do that by going into projection view and left clicking there. And then we're going to come and we're going to mouse over our primary view and move our mouse to the right. Left click to place. Okay, we still want to see things like this on this right side view. So let's double click in here and go to view display and change those same options under display view. Go to no hidden and tangent edges display view. We're going to change that to phantom and we're going to hit OK. We're going to project again, starting right here. And we're going to go from here and we're going to go up so we can show that top side view. And we're going to left click to place it, double left click to get into those options, go to view display and change that same thing. No hidden and phantom and hit OK. We could also go ahead and get into the properties for several of these things by selecting one first, holding down Control, clicking on that second one to choose more than one, and then click on this properties gold ball here and edit those things where we could go and edit things on multiple views in one shot. Okay, so both ways you can do it there. One's a little bit faster than the others. All right, so far we have our front view, our right side view, our top view. We want to add a couple of other things into here. So in our example, let me go ahead and download this so that we're looking at it as we should and not looking at it sideways, because it's hard to look at those things sideways as they open up automatically. Let's go to page number 70. We're going to rotate our view so we can see that. So here's the things we've got. We've got this one, that one, that one. We're going to create a sectional view, which again is where we take an object and we slice it down a line that we set, which in this case is going to be essentially a planar section. We cut right down the middle of that thing to create this view up here, which is where we're seeing the result of this cut line on this part. So we're able to see what is represented by hatched lines here, the solid portions of that part. We're also going to create a detail view where we hone in and zoom in essentially on a little section where we might need a little bit more of a detail or a better picture of that thing to help our end user out as they're looking at this. So as detail view, we highlight that area and then we get a blown up view of that. Okay, we're also going to do a couple of other things. We're going to put an isometric up here that's going to be shaded, and then we're also going to add one additional view on there, an auxiliary view where we pick a face of that thing and send that off into space over here. All right, so let's get back to the job at hand and work through those things. So let's knock out the section view first. Section views are always something that's very, very useful. And in order to do that, first thing we need to do is we need to go ahead and we're going to project from this one up so that we have a view that we can go ahead and cut. That was a little weird. Huh, weird. Gotta love when it happens. Okay, sometimes Creo goes a little bit weird, so it was doing weird stuff. So I deleted that view because it wouldn't let me undo it by hitting Control Z. And then after I deleted, I was able to Control Z and get it back. You tell me why. If you know why, you tell me why. Sometimes CAD stuff does a little bit weird things, and you go, well, where did that come from? But hopefully can figure those things out. So let's do that projection one more time. Let's click on this view. Let's go straight up here. Left click to place. Okay, we know that we want to go ahead and change some things on there. So we're going to double left click so we get into the drawing view. Let's go ahead and change the stuff with our display. So we're going to go no hidden lines. We're going to go with phantom. And then we're going to go to this section view. So this is where we're going to set up how that section view is going to appear on this thing. Okay. So a couple things we're going to need to do. First thing we're going to need to do is we're going to click on a 2D cross section. And then we're going to have to click on the plus to add a section. Okay. It's going to be a full section. We're going to choose create new because we want to add a new one here. We're not going to recycle one of these other view names on here. We can see the whole process. We're going to choose a planar view. Now, when we choose that planar view, we're going to need a plane turned on. So let's turn on planes so we have those to work with. Okay. So that we can use that to choose. You'll see why that's important here in a moment. And we're going to do a planar, a single, and I'm going to click on done. And it's going to ask us for a name that we want that sectional view to be called. In this case, I'm going to call it D. Left click on my check mark there, and I'm going to choose plane as my option. And then I'm going to come in, I'm going to find that plane and choose it. And then the last thing that I want to do, well, I'll show you that in a second. Let's hit apply. And now we see that we have a section view. And let's change one more thing. So one thing I don't see is when I'm looking at my example, I see that I have that cut line shown. Okay, and that cut line shows us again where this part was cut to create this section. Okay, so the AA is telling us that is the name of that cut line and also the name of that section view that we're going to see up at the top there. It also shows us the direction at which we are looking at that part when we're viewing the sectional view too. So since this part, we're looking at the top and we're rotating that thing 90 degrees around down towards us, the arrow shows us how we'd be looking to see this upper view here. It's a little less clear on a view like this where we're rotating things around and we have it placed a little bit oddly at the top there. All right. So back here. So we have the section view. One thing we are missing is seeing that arrow though. So let's get that arrow in here because I think that's an important thing definitely to know. So when we're in this drawing view and we've got our section set up, we're going to scroll all the way over here and we're going to choose arrow display. And it's saying select an item and we're going to select that view of the object where we want the arrow to appear. And if we hit apply now we see that cut line, that parting line, and then those arrows that show us the section. All right, so we'll hit OK. And our section view is done. Let's zoom in on this a little bit and just talk for just one moment here about this. So again, these hatch marks, these angled blue lines that are on here are showing us where we have a solid portion of that thing after it's been cut. Okay, we have object lines, which are black. So this is showing us a pass-through hole on here. We're showing solid material here, solid material on this side, all the way down and through to here, to the hole at the top, and then picking back up over here, hole in the middle there, and then solid here with a pass-through hole there and there. Okay, just so we kind of get an idea of what we're looking at, especially for those that are new, because it's a lot going on in this single drawing, definitely. All right, so we can, if we want to, in this case, we can go ahead and start to move things around a little bit to give ourselves a little bit more space. I think we may end up going and changing this text size on here because it's pretty big. But see, I can move that view around. I left click on the thing, left click, and then I'll get my arrows to show that I can move it. And I'm going to move the name of that sectional view and center it up a little bit better so it looks a little nicer. And when I do click on there, I can, click on and highlight everything in here and change some of those font characteristics either down in a little box that opens up here or up here and change all that stuff too. And we're just going to leave that alone for now. But you know what? Let's go ahead and let's change this font and scale it down a little bit because it's kind of big right now. All right, so to do that, we're going to go into File, and we're going to go to Prepare. We're going to go to Drawing Properties, and we're going to come over to Detail Options. We're going to click on Change, And this is where you get through all of the craziness and all of the things that you can change, which basically are all the parameters of this entire drawing and how it appears. Everything from the size of the text to how thick your leader lines are, how big your arrowheads are, um, how your dimension lines and extension lines appear, and all that other stuff is something that you can mess around with in here. And again, in this class, we're just kind of scratching the surface and we're learning the basics of all the things that Creo can do, but we're not getting too deep down into this. There's a lot here, a lot going on. Um, let's just start with something basic here. We're going to click on the text height. This is going to be a global change for this thing. So it's at 0.156250. And we're going to change that to 0.125. So we'll go eighth of an inch on there. And let's go ahead and hit enter. Make that change, apply it, close that one, and we see that our font size has come down. It's a little bit more manageable now. It's a little less overpowered. All right, so we got our sectional view knocked out. Let's work on this detail view because that detail view is going to come from here. So we're going to left click on detailed view up at the top here. We're going to first pick a center point like it's asking us to do. Select center point for detailed view and an existing view. So we're going to left click once. Left click. No. Let's try that one more time. So left click on detailed view. Select a center point. Going to pick an object. So that's going to be the center. That was the problem. I was clicking off in space here. So now we're going to sketch a spline without intersecting other splines to detail an outline. So here we go. We're just going to go to 9 o'clock, left click. We're going to go to 6 o'clock, we're going to left click. We're going to go to 3 o'clock. Then we're going to come up here to 12 and left click again. And then we're going to center click. And it's going to infer essentially how large of a detail view we want to be and change the size of that and add that circle. Okay. So that is where our detail view is going to be. And we're going to left click on here again. And now we're going to get that detail view, which we can drag out. So we have it denoted on our sectional view that the detail view is right here. And then we bring it out here instead of at 0.167 scale, we're doubling that up and we're going to third scale, 0.333 here. And now we have this view that we can go ahead and place. We're going to place this a little bit off over here. And let's go ahead and left click on the text here and bring that over so that makes a little bit more sense. It's centered up. Of course, at this point, if we wanted to, we could, get in and change some other things in here. We could change the scale of that if I wanted to go to 0.5. I could change that to go to half scale and make it too big. I don't like that though. I'm gonna go back to 0.333. That looks pretty good. And there we go. We got our detail view hanging out there. All right, so let's get this isometric up here. So lots of drawings now will have a nice isometric view on there. And to do that, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna click on general view. We're gonna go default all on that one. We're gonna hit OK. And then we're gonna left click. We're gonna keep that standard orientation so we get that isometric on there. I'm probably gonna change the scale on this one. And I'm going to go bigger on this one. Let's go to 0.333. Okay, so we have that bigger one on there. Might be a little bit overkill, but that's okay. We got the space for it. We went with a smaller scale on this, so we're going to leave that there. I don't really need to have a scale on there on the isometric. It depends on where you are. For the purposes of this class, you don't need to worry about it. However, if you're working somewhere, you definitely want to make sure you're checking with what your company wants you to do, and how things might operate in your particular shop. All right, so we got an isometric, we've got our 3 view, we've got a sectional, we've got a detail. And we got to do, well, let's go ahead and get that auxiliary view in. So we're going to click on auxiliary. When we click on auxiliary, we need to pick a face from which that's going to kick off from. When we do that, it's going to give us this box. Is where we're going to place that view. Okay. We got that. Let's double click on there. We want that view to look similar to our other ones. So we're going to go to view display. We're going to do no hidden. We're going to go phantom lines. We're going to apply that. We're going to hit OK. At this point, too, let's make sure we turn off those plane displays on there, too, because that'll come back to haunt us later if we don't turn it off, because that will print on your plans. And for views, I think we're pretty well set on what we need. Now let's get some dimensions in here. All right, so let's zoom in on this right side view, and we're going to start right here. Okay, so we're going to change from a layout tab, and we're going to go to annotate. Annotate is where we're going to do most of our dimensioning. That's going to have our full set of um, tools for dimensioning, adding tolerances, and all kinds of other things to better describe what's going on in the picture. So let's start simply here. We're going to go with a dimension. And like other things in Creo, it's not going to be quite as it often is with some other softwares. But to start out a dimension, we're going to left click on an edge down at the bottom here. And then according to this little pop-up, it says we need to press and hold control, and then go find that next point. So my next point is going to be that. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit. I'm going to left click on that one. And then as I zoom out, I see that I have that dimension 4 3/4. I can move my mouse around to place that dimension how I want to. I'm going to go centered up on those those leader lines there. And let's go ahead and get that. And we're going to middle click to place the dimension. And let go of that control and middle click, and that's going to place that. All right, so we got a dimension in there. Nice. We need to add some more. Let's go ahead and I'm going to show you one of those things where you're going to find out if you did a good job before on how you were dimensioning your actual model. So we can grab, because we created a 3D model, we had to put a bunch of dimensions in there. We can actually go ahead and grab them from the model that we created previously that we're using to make this drawing. So if I click on this view and I click on Show Model Annotations. Okay, I'm getting a whole lot of things on here, right? So all those dimensions that were put in to create that. They cancel on there once. Let's try that one more time. So let's click on Show Model Annotations first. And let's click on there like that. See how that's much cleaner? Notice the difference there? Let's click on the whole view first and then click on that. And now it's going to show me all of the dimensions, not just the ones that are planar to this view. It's going to show me all the dimensions that were input for this thing. That gets to be a disaster. So we're going to hit cancel on there. Let's do show model dimensions first, show model annotations first, and then click on the portion of that drawing that we want those from. This is a lot more manageable. And really all we're going to do is grab like 2 of them, because we already placed this one. So we can grab them and place them in one of 2 ways. We can left click on them to change the color, and they'll go from kind of a really deep purple to a dark blue. Or we can go over here on this list, and we're going to pick, let's find that 34. There's the 34. So we're going to click on that one to check that one. And we're going to go ahead and apply that. But before we go and apply that, we can use these two buttons here to either deselect everything or select everything, and then go through and remove the things you don't want. Okay, so we just end up with those two. We're going to hit apply, and then we end up with those two dimensions added there. So when we talked about, and kind of as I was going through these earlier assignments, we were trying to be careful about how we're dimensioning our models while we're creating them. And this is really one of those reasons, one of two reasons why you want to do that. One, because when we go and add these dimensions to a two-dimensional drawing that we're creating from that model, we want this to be as neat as possible, right? Because we have standards to which we need to dimension drawings, and we really don't get into that a whole lot in this class. But no, there are international standards, many different standards, depending on whom you might happen to be working for or where, that dictate how this look. But in general, they're pretty similar. Okay, so there might be some differences in things, but in general, the way that something's dimensioned here in the United States is going to be the same way it's dimensioned in China or Japan or in Europe, because we have agreed upon standards, because plans and technical drawing is an international language, right? We're using these same drawings across the world because our companies are international. We have partners all around the world. And if we didn't speak the same language when it came to this technical drawing, we would be in a whole lot of trouble. So we have those standards. So we're not doing these drawings and these dimensions in this class perfectly to standard by any means, but we're trying to make them. This is not perfect. This is a practice drawing to go through and practice as many of these things as possible. All right, but that being said, let's clean up a couple things, because these extension lines on the end of these dimensions for this angle, if I click on them, left click on the dimension, okay, I see that the end of this line goes all the way into the part. I'm gonna bring that extension line back down here. So if I left click on it, get the blue dot, I left click and hold and drag that blue dot. I don't want these extension lines going across my object lines and everything else that's part of the actual drawing. It's definitely bad form regardless of standards that you're looking at. So we want to clean that up and make that a little bit better. All right. So we got the dimensions there. We got some dimensions there. We're going to do some ordinate dimensions in a moment here, but first let's go ahead and let's add some centers onto one of these views, two of these views. So let's go ahead and let's double left click on that sectional view at the top. Okay. Nope, I lied. We're going to go ahead and we're going to click on show model. This time we're going to click on the view first, and we're going to click on show model annotations. And we're going to get all kinds of stuff. Don't get worried. We're going to calm down the noise here. And up at the top of this annotation tab that pulls up, we're going to find the one that says model datums. And we're going to click on that. And what that is going to show us is going to show us the centers for all these circular features that are part of that view. And we could, like with the other things, we could go ahead and keep all those things. We could select none of them. I'm just going to put all of them in there, and I'm going to hit OK. And it's going to add the center lines for all of those things. Let's go ahead and add this as well. At the center. So we're going to do the whole view first. We're going to click on it to highlight it. Then we're going to open up show model annotations. I'm going to go ahead and select all of those because I want all those centers on there. And I'm going to hit apply. And I'm going to close that out. And now I have center marks on all of my circular features on these two views. All right, so next kind of dimension we're going to do is we're going to add is ordinate dimensions. And to do that, we're going to be in this annotate. We're going to choose ordinate dimensions. Then we need to choose what kind of ordinate dimensions we're going to do. In this case, we're gonna draw and we're going to reference a horizontal line. Okay, and then we're going to create dimensions based off of this. We like to use this a lot when we are machining things when it comes to dimensions because we're going to set a reference point, a common reference point on a part, and then derive our dimensions from that common reference point. Okay, so we're going to reference the original point and then work from there. So from here, I'm going to choose, in this case, we're going to do horizontal. And then we're going to come and choose over here from this drop down menu. We have entity, surface, and then reference. We want to choose reference. So let's zoom in here and see what we're doing. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to pick a horizontal line. Okay, it's just our reference. And then we're going to hold down Control, and we're going to go and find the horizontals of the centers of these circular features. Okay, and then we're going to zoom out a little bit. We're going to place this right here. We're going to fix this leader a little bit, maybe move it in a little bit. We'll see if we can make that a little bit nicer. We're going to left click, center click rather, to place, and then go ahead and close that out. So now we have, let's see if we can fix that. Yeah, we can just drag that guy in a little bit, get it out of the way. Let's make sure we do the same thing on this other side. I still don't like this D being intersecting with that, but we're just doing practice, and the dimensioning police aren't going to come for us this time on this one. But again, this is bad form. An extension line crossing over a dimensional object, not as bad as it when it crosses over the actual thing itself. Okay, but just something to be aware of. So the ordinate dimension, again, we set a reference. We chose a horizontal one, the center line from this view, and then it gave us dimensions away from that center line so that we could locate those other features. We needed a dimension, obviously, another set of ordinate dimensions to show us from the center here where these are going to go, because we need two coordinates, right, to locate something. We need a dimension first for the thing, which we don't have on here. So maybe we'll put a dimension on for this hole. Let's go ahead and add that. So let's click on dimension. Let's click on the arc. And let's go ahead and let's bring that over here. Now, when we do that, I'm going to leave that like that, but I don't like that. What's wrong with that? We're speccing a whole feature, a feature that's a whole, and we've given it a dimension of a radius. Well, we're making a whole, and in a lot of cases, in general terms, you're going to make a hole with a drill. Now, when something's being machined, it could be, being the hole could be made with an end mill when it's being done. It just depends on the tolerances. But anyway, when I'm specifying a hole, I don't want to do that with the radius. It's always going to be with the diameter, right? So I don't like that at all. Let's get rid of that. Let's try that one more time. Let's try the dimension again. Dimension. There we go. And I keep doing it wrong. Because it kind of depends on how you're going to click this thing to get that to come out right. Try it one more time. Let's go dimension. Zoom in on there. It's all right. We're going to leave it for now. We'll come back to it. Maybe. Or you know what? Let's you figure out how to do that. There's a couple different ways to do it. See if you can remember how to do that and change this one to a diameter instead of a radius. Okay. All right. So we're almost done. Last thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to add a note. I'm going to add that note right here. Just going to type in exercise 6. Going to left click on that to place it. I'm going to zoom in here and highlight this whole thing. And change the height of that to 0.2 just to fill it out a little bit better there. At that point, I think I'm going to call that good. All right, so we've got all the basics covered here. There is a lot that goes into creating two-dimensional drawings, but again, those of you that came from a 2D background to this class are realizing now the first time that, man, I spent all that time learning how to do that, and now the software does it for me, which is either a good thing or an aggravating thing, depending on how you want to look at it. All right, so go ahead and get that thing saved up, get that submitted. And again, don't forget midterm due September. Let's look again so I don't give you the wrong date. Double check. That is coming up on September the 13th. Sounds right. Midterm exam, September the 13th, and due at 11:59 p.m. Not the next day. Look how much that is worth. 300 points out of 1,000 for the semester. Do not sleep on that one. Do not turn it in late. Get it done. Get it started after finishing up the stuff from exercise number 6. All right, that's it. See ya.